Good morning, everyone. I want to build a little bit on the concept that I've mentioned over the last few days concerning whether things are true just because we believe them from a certain perspective or it's the way that it's always been done. And today I want to talk a little bit about the nutritional theory or the nutritive theory in plants, which basically states that at different stages of their growth, they require certain nutrients in order for their hormones to be released and for their growth to go a certain way. Now, in humans, the nutritional theory is basically what we see widespread around us. It leads to the counting of macros and micros, looking at blood serum levels of glucose and other non-organic and organic minerals, and it really does contribute quite strongly to diet culture, which is that we demonize entire groups of food, restrict calories, which can lead to eating disorders, and also feel that we are in this battle constantly with our bodies about how many calories we're taking in, and we feel that if we, for example, eat a certain food that has a certain nutrient, we've gotten that nutrient and our body has achieved what it needs. And these guidelines we follow through the FDA and other institutional boards, which give us this information based on averages and what we think we require. The reason I'm bringing the nutritional theory into focus today is due to the fact that there are other perspectives to take and other factors that could possibly correlate with this that alter the way that it affects our bodies. So, for instance, I want to bring into focus the fact that there are reasons why that might not work so black and white and so perfectly. One of those reasons, and we're often not looking into this whatsoever, is whether or not our gut is even absorbing properly. Whether it is intact and able to take in these foods and break them down adequately. This concept is not discussed at all. Whether we're able to absorb these nutrients and assimilate them and use them. That plays a big role in whether the things that you are consuming are doing anything for you. So, the first point to address here would be things like leaky gut syndrome. The gut is a pretty sensitive thing with a mucal layer all around and can be harmed by various, different microorganisms growing out of balance, the acid levels getting too high, and all of this is actually symptomatic, and it points to a true cause, which at the end of the day could be an imbalance in the states within the body of four things: the acid-base balance, the electromagnetic fields of the organism, the state of toxicity, and the state of nutrition. So, poor nutrition combines with a variety of other things which create a state of disease within an organism, which according to those four principles thrive in an acidic environment, an environment that's low in oxygen, an environment that therefore is conducive to the growth of all sorts of microorganisms that already exist that just get kicked out of balance. It's a state which is frequency-based, not so good for the organism. It's a state of toxicity, and it's a state where the proper things are not even taken in. So let's talk a little bit about the proper things. We know from our information that nutrients that we require are very highly focused in fresh fruits and vegetables. And why is that? One of the things that you need to focus on here is antioxidants. Antioxidants have been shown to reverse and slow down the damage that is done by free radicals. Free radicals happen to us through basically anything that we do. Breathing the oxygen that we breathe eventually kills us by the end of our lives because it actually creates so much damage to our DNA to the point that our telomeres get shortened and then we pass away. Well, that is one of the theories as well, and you can look into that. But free radicals can be created within our bodies through the combination with other chemicals that we come into contact with. So, for example, eating really burned food, that is going to increase the number of free radicals that are within the body, and one of the things that fights these free radicals are antioxidants, which is why you hear that berries could lengthen your life or help protect against cancer, because they have a high level of antioxidants, and so do all fruits. Now, fruits and vegetables both have a high content of water within them. It's very different than the water that you would drink from your filter or even find in the stream. That's because it's carried within a matrix inside those fruits and vegetables, and they hold the enzymes and all other nutrients that it creates. And once you ingest that into the body, it's a very different type of hydration than it is just to drink a glass of water. I don't know if you might have heard, but certain types of water, specifically that which comes out of our tap, actually dehydrates us. It takes energy for us to take that water in, because it contains certain neurotoxins, certain drugs, things like fluoride, which are absolutely not healthy for the nervous system nor the pineal gland, and the mineral balance within it is all off, which means that your body needs to compensate for the ingestion of that water by removing minerals from all other places, like, for example, our bones and our teeth. So the thing is, the body is intelligent. It contains infinite stores of all sorts of different things, and it's always on the lookout for how to maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis is a state of balance. So this is an important aspect that's not brought into the nutritional theory discussion. What happens when you ingest the wrong things, or when you essentially put your body under stress for years and years and years, doing things that you didn't even think had anything to do with the state of disease in your body? I'll tell you what, your body takes the fall for that. So, your body, as this intelligent being, tries to maintain homeostasis throughout the entire process. What it will be doing is consistently trying to keep your alkaline pH levels in your blood the same by pumping out these minerals that you've stored in your bones out into your blood. It will be moving things around between cells. It will be trying to process what you're putting in. Most of its energy will be spent upon digestion, not upon healing. So here's another aspect that we need to add into the nutritional theory. Yes, indeed, taking in the right things is one of the tenets of having a healthy state. But one aspect over here that is neglected is that starvation is very different than fasting. For example, starvation actually includes such low calorie levels that your body is kicked into a state of flight or fight, and you're actually going through chemical procedures to try to correct that, and you're going to feel really sluggish and low, and you're actually going to be losing a lot of body mass, and things are going to be happening that are not okay for the organism to keep going. The fasting state is quite different. The fasting state actually takes your body out of the digestion energy, which occupies your body for most of the day, and that energy can go into healing the body. It can go into balancing out any issues that were in the gut. It can go to optimizing the brain, because you see, the most sensitive part of our bodies is actually our brains. All of these toxins and heavy metals end up in our brains, and that is what we find as the final resting point for most of these diseases that plague us as humanity. For example, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, dementia, all of these issues rest in the nervous system and how they've affected the brain. So one of the main principles that needs to be taken alongside the nutritional theory is detoxification. It is the removal of the blockages. It is addressing these aspects and removing these heavy metals and removing things, and it's removing anything that could be preventing one from assimilating what they need to, and also being in that state of balance, not trying to maintain balance because you're doing all kinds of things that are kicking the organism out of balance. So, the nutritional theory has a few things that we need to mention that could be correlating and making the story more complex. The first one I did mention was that your nutrients might not be assimilating. So the digestion aspect of things, if they're not coming in because there's a blockage, then you have a problem. The second thing to mention is that the impacted waste in the colon, that's a problem. If the person has not actually removed and mobilized that waste, what you could be doing is reabsorbing these toxins over and over again into the bloodstream and creating a state of toxemia in the body, a state in which the toxins and neurotoxins circulating are actually creating inflammation and all kinds of other responses, which we go on and recognize as other diseases. we go on and say that these symptoms are now happening and they're labeled this disease or they're this type of issue. But they all correlate to the fact that these things are moving around the body and creating a state of toxicity. Yesterday, I mentioned the fact that when the body is poisoned, it releases bits of code, which we call viruses. Also, when the body is under a certain state, so for example, when those 4 things are kicked out of balance, the pH balance, electromagnetic load, the toxicity, and the nutrients, what you have is an environment, a terrain that activates certain microorganisms that already exist within you to kind of come out and clear up what's going on. In fact, they get affected and they start releasing neurotoxins. So we're not talking about a state of disease that comes from the outside and attacks you. It's within. It is within. When that balanced state is achieved within, things cannot live on that. You're not an adequate host then for a parasite to feed on. What does the parasite feed on? You see, the parasite feeds on the energetic leakages. It feeds on the blockages. It feeds on improper nutrients that give you nothing but feed it. Here's a little interesting aspect about parasites that we need to understand. They function by 2 means. First of all, they get what they want off of you, and we'll get into that in a second. And second of all, they thrive off of you not knowing they're there. And we'll also get into that in a second. So the first concept, how is it that they actually get what they need off of you? An interesting aspect to note over here is that they actually can influence your neurobiology. So they can actually create loops in your behavior through your nervous system, which causes certain cravings in you. The gut-brain axis is completely connected. So anything that's going on in the gut and the release of their neurotransmitters actually finds its way to your gut via the transmission through those nerves. And therefore, a lot of the cravings that we have might not actually be our own. This is a very interesting subject because it means that there's a lot of things that we feel we must have, that we really need, that could very well be feeding a state of disease within our body. And it is a conscious being on its own which calls out for these things. And the second aspect that it thrives from hiding from you or not making you aware of this aspect is through specific means. One of those is actually something called a biofilm. And this is a kind of like a mucus layer within the body that a lot of colonies can hide under. And they're quite smart in that way, in the sense that your body cannot find the antigens on their surface and mark them for removal. And so they can remain within your body for many, many, many years, living secretly beneath this biofilm. So this is where the concept of detoxification comes in. And I'm going to bring in the work of Max Gerson right now, a German physicist and scientist. Well, I think he was a doctor. Okay, a doctor. We're going to bring in the work of Max Gerson because Max Gerson, he managed to cure his own migraines and move on to help a lot of tuberculosis patients completely reverse the state of tuberculosis without vaccines, without medication. And he actually ended up working with cancer patients, reversing their cancer, healing cancer cases. Now, this is not something we hear in the mainstream because his work was completely banned from the States and he had so many issues with getting this out there. There are clinics to this day that use his work, and there are books that he has released using his case studies for these patients. But let's give you a little lowdown about how it is that his work managed to restore the body to a state of health. And here's how. So he did not use just one concept. He used 3. The first one was the high dosage of antioxidants and nutrients through the most effective means, which was a very strict schedule of juicing, a very consistent schedule throughout the day of multiple fresh juices, not anything that was pasteurized or bought from the store or even something that was 2 days old. No, it was fresh on the day, and the person would have those juices, like let's say every hour, a high concentration of antioxidants through fruits and definitely lots of green juices as well. So this did the first thing. This added in all the nutrients, right? Now, but we're not done here because this is not solely how the human organism works. There was an aspect that stated that this state of disease was coming from blockages. It was coming from accumulation of toxins. It was coming from issues that could not solely be addressed by giving one nutrients. And that is where the concept of detoxification came in. Detoxification in this case was achieved through many, many coffee enemas. and any other kind of lymphatic massages, like basically clean out the digestive system. And the third concept here was supplementation. So adding in things that would help aid in the detox because they would support the glands of the body, they would support the elimination, and they would also add in anything that might have been deficient. Because you need to understand that a state of disease is a state of deficiency. There's something lacking. It's not working. There's a blockage. So we'll go back to the original points that I mentioned here. The nutritional theory on its own, simply a status of calories or status of nutrients, is not enough to say whether we are getting what we need or we are healthy. That is because there could be blockages in the system that are not allowing you to absorb things. That could be because the four things are imbalanced, which is to say the acid-base balance, the electromagnetic state, the state of nutrition, and the state of toxicity. If there's an imbalance in that, just giving you nutrients is not going to fix anything. And there could also be something like your own homeostasis is out of balance, which means that your chemicals are not in balance to begin with. So you don't have the proper enzymes, or you have such a low mineral balance that you're not able to compensate for those foods that you are taking in. So there's a lot of factors to come into play here. But a state of health comes from supporting this organism to do what it does best, to do what it does naturally. So in order to do so, you're going to not obstruct it by giving things that create mucus. Now you can go right now for your own research and look into mucus-free foods, because this principle is very important. There's a lot of foods that simply feed disease. They feed parasites, they feed bad microorganisms in the body, and they create mucus. Now we're going to go in here and say that mucus is at the root of all diseases. You will find it in any disease state. And who of us does not know this? When you become ill, right, your lungs get filled with this liquid. You have sinuses that are dripping. When you are in a state of arthritis, your joints ache. There's calcification between the joints. All of these obstructions are related to one thing, and we have split them off and called them all different diseases, but they're all related to a similar state of obstruction. Now, these white blood cells aggregate and accumulate at the region of disorder, because there's all sorts of stuff that is living off of this state of disease. That ultimately is what can kill an organism, because the plaque hardens. You get situations like atherosclerosis, which is when within the arteries you get platelets and all these things kind of pile up on top of an original rip in the artery. So we're having this state of mucus all over the body in different areas, which contributes to this state of disease. Looking into mucus-free foods, or even the mucus-lean diet, which is essentially a transition phase where you begin to eliminate a little bit, test, try things that are only mildly inflammatory, and kind of build up towards a state where you clear out the body of these mucal deposits. Because this, at the end of the day, is also going to address this biofilm within the body, which all of these microorganisms could be hiding behind, contributing to a state of disease that we're not even aware of. That is why the three things together are very important to address. That is to say, yes, receiving the correct antioxidants and nutrients. The second one here is saying, okay, well, we need to remove the obstructions. We've got to actually detox if there is so much compacted plaque and old waste in the colon. You are reabsorbing that into the body, and you're not really doing anything when you add in more. You've got to move that sluggish system. This includes the lymph, which basically carries all our antibodies and helps clear out the body. And the third one is to add in supplementation to help these systems which have become weakened. So right now, this has been a talk to explain why the nutritional theory in and of itself cannot explain a lot of the things that happen to us. You could be eating so well, you think you're doing so well, right? But if you're not absorbing it correctly, are you receiving those things? If your balance on the inside is not correct, are you absorbing? Are you producing what you need via the microorganisms in your gut? Is your body having to constantly jump in and create homeostasis by basically trying desperately to help you digest what you just ate? You've ingested something that's not living. And by not living, I mean it contains no enzymes in and of itself. Let's say it's been pasteurized, it's been cooked, or it's actually a dead animal. The problem here is that it does not have enzymes in and of itself. If you are in a weakened state where you do not have as good stomach acid and enzymes within the body, when you add something incredibly heavy into the system, your body actually has to put in work to try to help you break this thing down. And a lot of the times it's already being pushed into the colon and it's a lot of compacted waste and it's not moving properly. This is a state of disease. This is not a state of health. And in order for us to work with these principles, I want to introduce something to counter the simple nutritional theory that you've got to run out there now and eat every single thing of every color that has every single type of nutrient that you can imagine and try to meet your macronutrient balance. I'll tell you something. Your body is intelligent, which means that when it needs something, it will tell you. Intuitive eating is a very different aspect. Intuitive eating is, okay, well, you don't just wake up and have a plate of bacon and eggs because that's what everybody does and you feel like it. You wake up and eat when you have reached a sufficient state of hunger. When you are feeling the cue to do something, then you do it. Okay, but how do you get to this state? And this is why the aspect of detoxification and the removal of these parasites is so important. Because as I stated, parasites have the ability to influence your mind, to influence your cravings, to influence what you think you need to do for yourself. But it could very well be for the survival of these organisms. They also want to survive. And if you're giving them something to survive on, you're having a party. So it becomes important at this point to differentiate between what is truly you and your well-being and what is something else. And it comes with very specific messages. Like if you have these really strong cravings or this desperate need to have this sugar, we call this an addiction, right? And sometimes we beat ourselves up personally as if it is us that, we're definitely trying to harm ourselves and we can't get out of this loop. What you need to understand is that multiple things need to work together to break this said addiction. One of them being countering the effects of this addiction by adding in the right antioxidants and nutrients. This begins to change the taste buds on your tongue. Like at first when you try something new, you're quite averse to it. It's because you're not so open to it. The pathways are not used to it. That's one thing. And these types of things can help fight the effects of the free radicals in the blood. The second thing that needs to be done is the actual detoxification. Oftentimes the detoxification of the very things that are asking for those foods. Your addiction very well could be an aspect of toxicity. It could be an aspect of entire colonies that are living and are asking for this thing. So that's where detoxification becomes very important, because then we can overcome these things and finally correct the imbalances that were caused by their excess. And by that, we mean adding in supplementation. But another thing to note about your body, as we said, is it's intelligent. And so when you go into a state of fasting, or when you actually eliminate and remove things that you're not meant to be consuming, your body can really figure itself out. And this is a good allegory and parallel to what's happening in our world right now. We remove this state of pollution, the cars that we're running around, we remove all this extra noise and stress and duress, and what you see is nature basically just springs right back in. All the birds are back, the sky is clearing, the air feels clean, it's quiet, it feels good. That's all. We didn't go about and carve up the earth and give it better land or anything. You just oftentimes remove the state of obstruction, you remove the thing that's causing the problem, and that is even more than half of the work, because we are not out here building our own limbs. All of this is happening. There's a reason why you are not in control of your own breathing, and it's part of the autonomic nervous system. Can you imagine if we had to control our own breathing? It's like, breathe. Oh, whoops, I forgot. So it's important that we understand our body is a subconscious entity that it is. It's vastly intelligent and contains stores of all this information. And it is able to do things, miraculous things, heal you of all sorts of things. I want to add a little concept over here that might go against, again, what we in the mainstream might have known to be true. We are at a battle. We're in an arms race with everything in the current world that we live in. We're trying to spray wildlife to stop it from growing. We're going to spray pesticides here. We're going to attack your body with chemo. We're going to add this vaccine because this virus is going to hurt you. It's coming from the outside. No, it's not. These things are all within us. The state of disease is within us. Your body releases these codes when it is being poisoned, when it's under duress, when there are problems and imbalances. We're in this constant war trying to fight things. It's the same with your own body. It's like something happens, there is an organ that's having an inflammation, having a problem. What do we do at the doctor's? So we remove it. Well, brilliant. Have we solved the problem? Have we understood where the cause of the fire? Have we looked into the underlying things? Have we looked at the state of imbalance? Not at all. We've simply gone in and said, all right, well, this is clearly not working. Let's pull it out. Let's think a little bit about what could be the effect on the full organism of removing a part of it. Just, is it going to move on unaffected? And the answer is no. So these things need to be taken into consideration. Because, for example, when we go in to, let's say, remove a tumor or a cyst, we are not even questioning what the tumor or the cyst is. Oftentimes, these things are actually burst open through the process of surgery or when they're actually taking a sample to go study it. And all sorts of things that are within that tumor get released around the body. And next thing you know, you've got a metastasized cancer all over the body. You've got to go through chemo and radiation, and next thing you know, you're dead. The important aspect to understand over here that goes against what is said is that your body's intelligent, and it does a lot of things to protect you. When you are piling in toxicity into the body, whether involuntarily through what's going on in the environment and the ingestion of the heavy metals through the waters, or you're adding insult to injury with the foods that are being fed that are feeding a state of disease, your body responds to maintain homeostasis. And so it's going to gather up all of these rogue cells and these issues, these funguses, because let's look into cancer as a fungus. This is a very important aspect, thriving in acidity. So it's going to gather up all of these things, these colonies. It's going to encase them in a sack, and it's going to put them in one place, and it's going to say, all right, okay, it's here now. Okay? It's not around your body anymore. Just here it is. Let's keep you safe from this situation. So a lot of times when we go and prick it, all this stuff goes all around the body all over again. We in fact feel like we're at some kind of battle with our own bodies, but your body is your benefactor. It's like what lives inside you. It is you. It's what's intelligent and is what heals you. So I want to point out a very interesting aspect over here, that when the body... when you give over the healing to the body, let it do what it does best through this process of elimination and detoxification, as well as adding what it needs. But most importantly, your body can heal when you do nothing at all, when you just don't eat, when you don't add in and waste all this energy digesting. What you find is a lot of interesting case studies of people that have had these tumors that have fasted and had them simply move through the layers of the skin and just pop out. Literally little white balls like that just pop out of the body. That is remarkable. And that goes against everything that we believe we need to go in and chop and do and arrest. We're not in a battle. Guys, you are in union with your body, and the sooner you come into a state of balance with your being and come into that union, the sooner you will learn to read the signs. This is going to become very important moving forwards. Understanding patterns, reading signs, and becoming literate in symbols. Your subconscious communicates to you via symbols, and if you don't know this, it is all around you. Everything around us is a manifestation of our collective unconsciousness as well as your subconscious. And it's going to communicate to you via symbols, signals, messages, and we encode them and understand them and work with them. That is, if we are aware that they are happening, you can begin to see the patterns. And so in that same sense, when the body gives a sign of distress, it is a communication of something deeper. It is not the time to cut your leg off. It's not the time to go and take a suppressive medication that dampens down those symptoms. Those symptoms are happening for a reason. So for example, when we go through a fever, we're actually burning up, and that is leading to when the fever breaks and we've overcome this certain microorganism that's grown out of proportion. All of these things are indicators of something, and the use of suppressive medication actually puts us out of touch with our own bodies because we begin to dissociate, and it affects our kidneys. It puts a strain on them to filter this stuff, as well as leaching nutrients as it's going in. Like, if we knew that these medications that we take actually take out nutrients out of our body, imbalance us, actually affect our brains, deposit a lot of chemicals and metals into our brains, we would understand that this is not health. This is not health at all. And I will leave you with this. Perfection does not come from adding an infinite number of things and thinking, well, now the thing is perfect, but rather simplicity. It's when you no longer need to take away anything. When your body is left with the few pure things that make it itself and it can do its job easily, that is when we experience the ultimate state of health and vitality. You feel well within yourself. There's nothing left to eliminate that is blocking your own energy from freely moving around and doing what it was meant to do. I hope that this talk has given you a few interesting points to look into. I hope you feel encouraged and empowered at this time concerning your own health, to understand that it was always an inside job. It was never anything to do with anything external. The state of health or disease is determined by the terrain of the body. This was the terrain theory by Antoine Béchamp, so you can look into that as well. And we need to know that this state of health can be achieved through our own mindfulness towards the acid-base balance, the electromagnetic fields that are around us, the state of toxicity, and the state of nutrition. Hopefully this leads you down a few paths that might help you, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day.